I tried calling her all day. She didn't answer. I couldn't keep a dead animal in my truck all weekend. So I buried him in a nice spot in the woods. I even brought her back the collar and some hair, like she asked. April shook her head. I didn't have the money right then, but he should have told me. He tried to tell you, Madam, you didn't answer the phone. The judge's voice snapped like a whip. She looked down at April, her expression softening just a fraction, shifting from judicial ire to a hard, maternal truth. Ms. Johnson, the judge said slowly, sadness is a much more difficult emotion to deal with than anger. It is easier for you to be furious at Mr. Clocky than to simply sit with the grief that your 17-year-old companion is gone. April sobbed, covering her face. This man, the judge continued, gesturing to Joel, did you a massive favor. He picked up your deceased dog. He drove him across town. When you failed to provide him with the resources to fulfill your specific wishes, he did the most respectful thing he could think of, and you want to punish him with a $10,000 judgment. Unconscionable. You have no case. Case dismissed. Joel exhaled a breath he had been holding for months. April turned away, the anger draining out of her, leaving only the hollow, unavoidable ache of her loss. Case for 1053, Drust v. DeHorst. Daniel Drust stepped up to the podium, his posture rigid with indignation. Timothy DeHorst approached slowly, looking down at his hands. Mr. Drust, you loaned your 2007 Honda Civic to the defendant, and he totaled it. Yes, Your Honor, I loaned it to him so he could get to work. He fell asleep at the wheel and drove it into a ditch. The judge looked at Timothy. Is that true? You fell asleep? Yes, Your Honor, Timothy mumbled. I was exhausted from my second job. And your defense is that the car was a gift? Yes, he gave it to me. The judge raised an eyebrow. Really? Mr. Drust, do you have the text messages? Daniel proudly handed the printout to the bailiff, who passed it up to the bench. The judge highlighted a section and handed it to the bailiff to give to Timothy. Mr. DeHorst read that highlighted section out loud, the part where he allegedly gifts you this vehicle. Timothy swallowed hard. He looked at the paper. The words condemned him. It says, let's do this for a week, and then we will either work out a different arrangement financially, or I'll just take it back. The courtroom was dead silent. Tell me, the judge said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What word in that sentence suggests he gave you the car? Timothy stared at his shoes. It doesn't. Duh, the judge shot back. You borrowed a car. You were negligent. You destroyed it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. Step back. Daniel offered a brisk nod of vindication. Timothy walked away, the weight of his exhaustion now compounded by debt. Case for 1067, Keel v. Spradley. The final reckoning belonged to Gilbert Keel Jr. and the Spradley sisters. Gilbert stood tall, Rakeshia Betts beside him armed with photographs and text logs. Amber and Cynthia Spradley stood together, arms crossed defensively. You moved out and stopped paying rent because you didn't like the neighborhood, the judge summarized. But you left property in the house, and when the landlord regained possession, the place was trashed. We moved out October 4th. Amber insisted loudly. We didn't do that damage. It was an unsafe neighborhood. Anyone could have broken in. Or maybe it was our cousin. Gilbert shook his head. Your Honor, they told my property manager they were out on October 26th. She went in on the 27th. The doors were locked. She had to use a key. This is what she found. The judge examined the photographs, the broken doors, the filth, the punched walls. We had foster kids, adopted kids. Cynthia interjected, playing for sympathy. We had to get them out of there. Having children does not give you the right to destroy someone else's property, the judge fired back. She turned her attention to the text messages between Rakeshia and Amber. Let's look at this, the judge said, tracing the lines of text with her pen. On November 5th, well, after you claim you abandoned the property, you text the property manager. I've been super sick. Crystal will come get our stuff at 3:30. If you moved out and took all your belongings on October 4th, why are you arranging for someone to retrieve property from the house in November? Amber stuttered. That was my cousin's stuff, not ours. I was in the hospital. Nonsense, the judge declared, slamming the paperwork down. You are spinning a web of lies to avoid responsibility for destroying this man's house. You made a decision to move into a property. You couldn't keep it up. You trashed it on your way out, and you expect him to foot the bill. The judge picked up her gavel. $5,800. Judgment for the plaintiff. We are done here. Court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, the sky was beginning to clear. Joel Clockey walked to his truck, feeling lighter than he had in months. He had done a favor, been punished for it, and finally been absolved. Daniel Drust walked toward his Tesla, satisfied with the logic and order of the law. And Gilbert Keel Jr. walked out with his property manager, already planning the renovations to his house, knowing that while people were messy, unpredictable, and often dishonest, the ledger of justice eventually balanced out. Inside the empty courtroom, the bench sat quiet, waiting for the next day, the next stories, and the next necessary truths to be spoken. The rules of the game, a New York Chronicle, based on the lives of Jeff, Audrey, Adam, Jennifer, and Russell. Chapter 1, The High Definition Sanctuary. The blue light of a 1080p high-definition television has a way of turning a modest New York living room into a high-tech cathedral. For Jeff Bingham, it was more than just a screen. It was a testament to his philosophy of life. If you were going to sit on a sofa for 4 hours on a Saturday, You might as well see the beads of sweat on the quarterback's forehead in crystal clarity. That was great. Nan,